You ever feel kind of stuck? Like your past is this thing that just follows you around, defining who you are? Well, today, we're going to dive into a really powerful idea from Larry Anderson's book, Inspiration to Live Your Magic. And it's all about how the stories of other people can actually give us the power to rewrite our own. And this whole thing kicks off with a promise. A promise the author made to himself when he was just a little kid, hiding from all the chaos in his life in a dark, scary basement. He vowed that if he ever figured out how to make his dreams a reality, he would share everything he learned with others. And this book, well, it's him keeping that promise.
So yeah, it all starts with that promise, a promise made in the dark.
But, before he could help anybody else, Anderson had to face his own worst enemy, which was, well, himself. Or more specifically, the negative story he kept telling himself over and over again. For years, that story was all about failure. When he was young, it was that familiar sting, always being the last one picked for teams in gym class. He just felt like he never really fit in. So he drops out of school at 16 thinking, okay, fresh start. But nope, the same old pattern just kept repeating. He'd get a job, it'd be fine for a little while, and then, boom, it would just become a total grind, going absolutely nowhere. He puts it pretty bluntly. He was an expert on who he was not, but he had zero clue who he was. He was just trapped, feeling sorry for himself. And that right there gets to the very heart of the problem. He had this huge realization that the most powerful story you'll ever hear is the one you tell yourself. And his own inner monologue, it had become his biggest enemy. So what do? How do you change a story that feels so incredibly real? Well, for Anderson, the answer, believe it or not, was in the library. He started digging into history and discovered that reading other people's stories could completely flip the script on his own. And this is where things really start to turn around. He reads about Anne Frank. I mean, just think about it for a second. A 13-year-old girl hiding from the Nazis, and she still wrote, "I don't think of all the misery, but of the beauty that remains." When he was faced with that kind of incredible strength, his own problems suddenly seemed, well, a lot smaller. Then he reads about Thomas Edison. People were calling this guy a failure left and right, but Edison saw things totally differently. He said, "I haven't failed, I have just found 10,000 ways that won't work." And that one idea, it completely reframed the whole concept of failure for him. And just like that, click, his entire mindset shifted. All those past mistakes weren't failures anymore. They were learning experiences. He was finally starting to rewrite his own story. What Anderson found was that history is just packed with these kinds of incredible stories. Real, tangible proof that perseverance can help you overcome almost any obstacle imaginable. Let's take Abraham Lincoln. We remember him as this legendary leader, right? But his most defining trait was that he stuck to his principles, no matter how high the cost. And let me tell you, the cost was immense. As he was pushing to end slavery, something he believed was just fundamentally wrong, he was getting death threats constantly. The pressure he was under is almost unimaginable. But his triumph was absolutely historic. Because he refused to back down, because he did the right thing, Honest Abe ended slavery in the United States. Now that's a legacy of integrity. Okay, this next one is wild. It's about literally rewriting your narrative. When Alfred Nobel's brother died, a newspaper messed up and printed Alfred's obituary by mistake. The headline, it called him the Merchant of Death for inventing dynamite. I mean, can you even imagine reading that about yourself? Nobel was horrified, as you can imagine. He decided right then and there to change his legacy. So what does he do? He takes his entire fortune and uses it to create the Nobel Prizes, forever linking his name not with destruction, but with the greatest achievements of humanity. And then you've got the story of Bertha Wilson. She tried to enroll in law school, and the dean literally told her to go home and take up crocheting, just completely dismissed her ambition. But she didn't listen, not for a second. She persevered, and her triumph was becoming the very first woman to serve on the Supreme Court of Canada, breaking down huge barriers for everyone who came after her. Now, these stories are incredibly powerful, but the real magic happens when we actually apply the lesson to our own lives. So let's bring this all back to you. What's your story? Seriously, what is the story you are telling yourself day in and day out? Is that story helping you, or is it the very thing that's holding you back? This is the ultimate takeaway from Larry Anderson's journey. It's the one insight that changed everything for him. I realized my past did not have to define my future. Your past is not your destiny. It's just a story, and you're the one holding the pen.
So I'll just leave you with this thought. We've seen how presidents, inventors, and judges completely rewrote their own narratives. They show us the immense power of telling a new story. So, if you could rewrite your story, where would you begin?